I want to show you how we can mask out large areas of the image that we no longer need. For instance, we obviously have the two other toy trucks which we don't need, and we want to mask them out really quickly. I suppose what I could do is I could grab my paintbrush tool and crank up the brush size super huge and just swipe them out in a couple of mouse drags. I could do that. Here's another technique, and I do this all the time. I'm going to grab my rectangular selection tool, my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to just create a big massive selection, you know, something like this, right? Being careful not to overlap the edge of the blue truck there, right? So I'm basically selecting the area of the image that I don't need any longer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this selection with solid black. So I'm going to make sure that solid black is in my foreground color swatch, and then what I'll do is I'll hold down Alt or Option and hit Delete on my keyboard, just like that, or backspace on your keyboard as well. And there you go. That fills the selection with black, right? Or in our case, it masks anything that appeared inside that selection. Let me show you another example of this. I'm just going to deselect, Controller Command D, and let's see. I'm going to zoom in on the area beneath the driver's side door on my blue truck. This area right in here, right? Maybe go in a little bit closer. Again, I could get in there with my paintbrush. That would be perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Or what I could do is I could use one of my selection tools, for instance, the polygonal lasso tool. And by the way, these techniques that I'm showing you, this will work with any selection tool, right? So what I could do here is maybe come along and create a selection across the bottom edge of the truck, and then, you know, kind of work my way around the tire treads here, maybe something like this. Again, it can be a little bit tedious, and you know, perhaps I could have even used, I'm just thinking here, I could have used the magic wand tool maybe to select all this color. Could have done something like that. But anyway, I'll show you this trick here anyway. It's kind of quickly making my way. I'm not being very careful here, by the way. I'm just kind of quickly showing you this here. Anyway, I'd work my way all the way around the rest of the tire, and then kind of come across here and work my way back around, something like this. This isn't the greatest job in the world, but anyway, the idea here, the intention here is to show you how we can create selections for our mask and then fill those selections with either solid black or solid white. So once I finish off my selection here, again, just Alt or Option and then Delete or backspace on your keyboard. And that'll fill that area with the foreground color, which again, in my case, is black, right? Or again, back to the brush tool by tapping the B key on my keyboard, and then away we go. We can certainly work that way as well, whichever method, you know, suits the way you like to work. What we want to make sure of too is that we don't have any empty areas inside the middle of our truck. How can we do that? Well, there's a couple of techniques to make sure that we don't have any empty gaps of space or any masking essentially inside the object that we want to keep, whether it's a blue toy truck or a Buddha statue or something else. So check this out. What we can do is we can actually load our layer mask as a selection, as marching ants, just by holding down Control or Command and clicking on the layer mask thumbnail inside the layers panel. And I want to make sure that I don't see any marching ants inside my truck. And as a matter of fact, I can see some marching ants. I see some down on the bumper there. I see some coming up over the rear fender there. And I see a little bit on the roof, and I'm really not sure how I'm going to handle these windows. I might have to decide whether to either keep background in there or make it completely transparent. Probably masked, probably transparent in my case. So I have a little bit more work to do here. Let me show you something else here. I'm going to deselect, Controller Command D on your keyboard. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option this time and click on the layer mask thumbnail. And what that does is that loads in your mask once again as either solid black, solid white, or shades of gray, right? And this looks exactly like our alpha channel, doesn't it? And it functions in exactly the same way. So what I can do once again is make sure I have my paintbrush tool selected inside the toolbox, and I can see right away that I still have bits of the background, for instance, selected here. So I still have black set as my foreground color swatch, so I can come in here and make sure that all of this is properly masked away, something like this. Or, of course, I could switch over to white, setting white as my foreground color, and then, of course, making sure that I don't have any black on the inside of the object that I want to keep, just like we did with our Buddha statue. So, for instance, I'm going to tap the X key on my keyboard to flip over to white, and then maybe grab that fender area. There's a little bit along there as well, below the door it looks like. Inside the hubcaps there, or the rims, whatever you want to call those, and the front corner of my bumper, and so on, right? So, again, we'd really have to spend some time to make sure that this is absolutely perfect, but there it is. That's a bunch of techniques there that I wanted to bounce off of you. And by the way, at any point in time, you can hold down Alt or Option and click back on that layer thumbnail, that layer mask thumbnail, to head back into regular old Photoshop. So again, it's sort of like a toggle. You can flip back and forth. And if you prefer working in this way, you can come in and adjust your mask and get it looking really good, and then head back into regular old Photoshop again just by holding down Alt or Option and clicking on that layer mask thumbnail.